I remember back when I first started kind of talking on the internet, and I was on Instagram at the time, and I was talking about marriage. And so obviously I was going to be attacked, but somebody commented and she said, "Nice eyebrows." Like I had just started doing my eyebrows at that time, and I was not very good at it. And it totally stunted me. Like I felt like I could not speak, because I was being judged and I had a lot of fear. So today I want to talk about homeschooling and fear, and particularly when we compare ourselves to other homeschooling moms. Mainly, I want to talk about co-op. I don't do co-op. I've never done co-op, and my kids are completely fine. Now, I know a lot of mothers out there who do homeschool co-op. Maybe you are one of them, and maybe you guys are thriving. Leave me a comment down below. Are you somebody who does co-op, or are you with me where it's like, nope, I've never done it? I Yeah, I am not standing in a place of judgment of anybody who does co-op, but I know that for me with my personality, it just stresses me out. If I'm tied down in the least way, I just freeze. And I have 6 kids, some of them are still napping, and it just really takes away from my peace. Even just the thought of doing homeschool co-op. Now, this is the thing. Proverbs 29:25 says that fear will prove to be a snare, but the one who trusts in the Lord will be kept safe. So fear is a snare, but it will also lead to us not being in a safe place. If I am, trying to fit myself into a box that looks like everybody else, maybe you're somebody who does a curriculum and you are totally 100% good with that. I do not do a curriculum. I've never done a curriculum. Again, that is something that would just put me in a box and make me feel like I am so tied down. I thrive when I kind of come up with my own curriculum. Maybe you are somebody who takes summers off. I school through the summer and I thrive doing that. But the thing is when we compare each other one to another, we are without understanding. Paul actually talks about that in, Corinthians, I believe it is. You know, we are each individuals and we are each unique. God loves uniqueness. And, if he didn't like uniqueness, then he wouldn't have created us all different. And so, you know, the fear of man will prove to be a snare. How do we fear man? Um, well, if I'm not doing this, and this, then I'm not doing it right. Or maybe I will be judged by my friends. Or, maybe my friends do homeschool co-op, but so if I don't do it, they're gonna judge. They're going to, talk to their friends, and then I will be, I don't know, the object of ridicule, or, she's not doing it right, or her kids are not going to be socialized, whatever it may be. Now, I'm someone, like I said, who has never done homeschool co-op. So, I mean, I'm a prime candidate to be fearful in that way. But you know what? We're connected in our church. Like I said, there's 6 of them here. So they communicate with each other. They socialize with each other. When I go out in public, people are always very surprised to hear that they are homeschooled because they're very social with other people. But yes, when we compare one to another, we are without understanding. And the reason that we are without understanding, I believe, is because, like I said, we are all so uniquely different. Now, that actually, in my opinion, points to biblical marriage because, when we're operating in our marriage the way we should be, and the way God intended. I'm not saying any of us are perfect at this marriage thing, but Ephesians 5:22-23 says, "Wives, submit yourself to your own husbands." Each of our husbands are different. And if you're living in an environment like a Christian home where you believe that the husband is the head of the home and that's the way that operate in your home and in your marriage, then, your husband is kind of at the front. And, we come under in biblical submission that way. Well, our husbands really add their own uniqueness to this whole thing. And it each family is going to look so different because each husband is different. So not only are we different, but our husbands are different as well. Like my husband, when I first started talking about co-op and I told him, honey, I don't really want to do it, my husband's like 100%. Your personality does not gyre very well with being tied down. So he was 100% behind me. And you know what? You can 100% know that you were in the will of God when, it doesn't matter if your friends are against you, if, your churchy friends don't agree with you, if they do something different. If you and your husband are in agreement, but you're coming under, your husband's submission, that's kind of the trump card in a godly way, then you can 100% know that you are in the will of God for your homeschool. The thing is this: whoever puts his trust in the Lord will be kept safe. That could be, submitting to your husband as unto the Lord. Like my husband doesn't think, honey, you really shouldn't do co-op. He was in agreement with me on that. But like, you will be kept safe. So there is a safety issue with this. Now, the other part of this whole thing is 2 Timothy 1:7. It's a very common one. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So the opposite of that, I have come to understand 100%, especially with my personality, is that when I am in fear, I am not going to be operating in God's power, and I'm not going to be operating in love. I will be short with my kids if I'm operating in a spirit of fear, like I have to conform to, you know, all these other homeschoolers and what they're doing. But the thing is this as well: we will be without a sound mind. If you are fearful and you are trying to fit yourself into this box that just does not fit you, you will not have a sound mind. And what does that make you think of? It makes you think of crazy. I have been all sorts of crazy in my home, in my marriage, in my homeschool. But you know what? I can always track it back to fear. Usually I can. What am I fearful of in this moment? I'm fearful that my kid is going to fall behind. I'm fearful that if we don't get it, they're not going to do well on the end of the year testing. I'm afraid that if I, you know, don't take the summer break, that I am going to just fall apart because I can't handle it. But you know what? God's ways are not our ways. And so when we, make peace with who we are, and, maybe our husband's, opinion, we definitely bring dad in on this. We will be kept safe. We will not have fear. So we will have a sound mind. I mean, homeschooling, one of the most important things about homeschooling is mom having a sound mind. Like that is like half of homeschooling. It's like having your teacher be someone who's not all wound up. And now listen to me. I'm not saying that I have not been wound up. Like, oh my goodness, I am somebody who is just so frantic most of the time and anxious. And I have to lay those things down. That makes me think of Martha in the Bible. Jesus said, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things. What are you worried and upset about? Drop it down in the comments. This homeschooling journey, like I tell you, it is not for the faint of heart. We are with each other. I am with you here. Like, it is not for the faint of heart. It takes so much energy and so much ambition and just, like I said, peace of mind and support from our husband and our families. And maybe you do go to a co-op to actually, make this thing work. We need each other, and I would love this channel to become like a place where we can come alongside each other and have a community of ladies who love and support each other. This is, yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. So the fear of man will prove to be a snare. We can fear man. We can also have our own fears, right? For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. When mom is operating in a spirit of peace, that is powerful. Okay. I mean, because whenever God tells us not to do something, then I almost feel like the opposite is true too. So if we have a spirit of fear, then we're going to be without power. We're going to be without God's love, and we're going to be without that sound mind. Now, the thing is this is when I'm operating in a spirit of love and I'm going at my child's pace, and even going at my pace. This isn't just about our children. This is about our pace as well. Like that is absolutely powerful. So I just wanted to get on here and definitely I wanted to address the whole homeschool co-op thing, because that is something I've ran into a couple people who school through the summer, and I follow the creation method, the 6-7 method. I don't know what it's exactly called. I school for 6 weeks, and then we take the seventh week off. So although we're schooling all year, we're taking more breaks, more than public school and stuff. I heard a wise woman say one time, it was actually in a book by Debbie Pearl. I know that there's a lot of controversy with that with the pearls, but this was a homeschooling book, and I vet the information. You don't need to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. But she said something that was so amazing. She said, a lot of times people try to replicate public school in the home setting. And you know what? That's a recipe for disaster. Another thing that we can fear is that we fear the state. As homeschoolers, there's not always someone looking over our shoulder, and so we're constantly kind of like looking around to see, like, am I doing this right? Or I need to go above and beyond the call of duty because, I want to show people that I'm not lazy. Or like if I'm running around and I'm anxious in my homeschool and we're knocking this out and we're doing so many things, then nobody can accuse me of laziness. Um, these are all very, very real things. Comment down below if you are somebody who does homeschool co-op, if you're somebody who schools all year like myself, or if you take summers off. I mean, we're all unique and we're all made in the image of God, right? We're image bearers of Christ, and we're raising our children in the ways of the Lord. I will link that book down below by Debbie Pearl. It's called Create a Better Brain. It wasn't a homeschooling book, but she did talk a lot about homeschooling concepts. Also, I'm going to link those little ultrasonic owls that you hear buzzing around here. I don't know if my mic can pick up on it, but I'm sitting here in the garden, and we fenced off the garden because the deer love to come up this way, right? Well, then I found these ultrasonic owls, I call them, and they blink and they make sounds, and we have not had one deer in our garden this year. Seriously, I feel like Mr. McGregor. It's like, stay away from my green beans and all of this. You can see my garden is coming up here, and you can see the chicken behind me. She's one that the chickens like to pick on. So yeah, I just want to come around you and just love on you and support you in your journey of homeschooling. I hope that this candid conversation is just a blessing to your heart. And until next time, bye for now.